Hey guys, so I hope you enjoyed that little Weird Al song. It's called Word Crimes. As I went through the different parts of speech for this week, I thought that you're pretty comfortable with that, starting with finding your nouns. Hand and music are both common nouns. And then you look for your verbs. Raise is the central action. Here is also a central action, so those are your action verbs. Can is a helping verb because it helps to show that you have the capacity to do something. After that, we find our two pronouns. One of them is possessive. It shows ownership. That's your. You is a nominative pronoun. It names a subject. But let's just put that pronoun, and it is in the second person, as is your. The is then an article. All right, I'm going to start labeling the parts of the sentence here while you continue to enjoy the music, and then we'll go over the answers together. Okay, well, Weird Al definitely has some opinions about those who do not use proper grammar, but of course he might be being sarcastic as well. So let's take a look at some of the answers here about our Tuesday work, specifically the parts of sentence. I took the liberty to do this again while you watched and listened. Hear and raise are your central verbs because we identified them in this part of speech section, raise and hear. Hear is an action verb, whereas can is a helping verb. So can isn't going to be the central verb. Here is. I'm trying to get the spacing so that it reflects that. So when we go through this process, we first find our verbs for Tuesday. For Monday, we always find our nouns first. Now that we have found our verbs, raise and hear, we backtrack and figure out who or what is doing the central action. So you is doing the raising. We'll come back to that in just a second. And you are hearing the music. Now here in this parentheses area is you because that's an implied subject. Whereas a teacher might say, raise your hand if you can hear the music. The teacher is looking at you or the class, and so that subject is implied. So when it comes time to our punctuation, you may want to put it in parentheses. But then again, you might read a cereal box that tells you the different steps. Not that anybody needs steps on how to make cereal, but that wouldn't have quotation marks because it's written. So something to think about that a lot of students ask, do we put quotation marks around things? Now that we've found our subject and verb, we start to look for our direct object if there is one. In this case, there are two. So what was it that you raised? Your hand. And what was it that you potentially heard? The music. So if you look at these structures, it follows a formula: subject plus verb plus direct object. And whenever you have a direct object, it will always go in this particular order, with your subject first, then your verb, then your direct object. And here we have an additional structure that is identical to the previous one. Now, looking at this structure, you may see that there is some commonality between this one and this one. They're exactly the same. So when we see that kind of pattern, that kind of repetition, it may be that we've got two different clauses that have been put together. So just listen to the sentence and see if you can hear where there might be a place to separate it. You raise your hand if you can hear the music. That's right. If you can hear the music is separate from raise your hand. Okay. Boom. And it's not asking on this part of the assignment to put brackets, but it helps us to identify our subjects and verbs, and it helps us just wrap our heads around with what type of sentence we're dealing with. We found all of these with exception to the predicate and underlining the simple subjects, or the complete subject. In this case, you is the only part of this clause that is the subject. So if it said if you all, if it said each and everyone raise your hand, then what would happen is you would have actually two simple subjects, each and everyone, and then this would be the complete subject, each and everyone. But that's not the case. So backtrack here. There we go. So use the complete subject in this clause. You is also the complete subject in the other clause. The predicate is everything that is not yet underlined or everything that helps to describe the action you are doing. Those are two ways to help yourself find the predicate. Raise your hand raises the action, and what you are raising your hand helps to describe or characterize the action. So that's your complete predicate in that clause. Can hear the music is also part of the predicate in that clause, as well as if, because they all help to describe or characterize your action, hearing the music. Perhaps if you were observant, you may have seen on the right-hand side it says one predicate. That is more of a 7th grade concept, because if creates a dependent clause, technically this entire thing is a predicate, even though you remains the simple subject inside that clause. But I don't address that with you because I want you to continue to learn how to isolate a subject from a predicate. So that's a pretty special thing to remember. It's not the most important, but if you get a teacher who gives you a different set of information and says, you know, this is a predicate, complete predicate, that's why. Now, I'm going to continue to play the music and have you put brackets around the clauses and label the clauses as dependent or independent. So I'll let you do that on your own while I play the music. Okay. Now that you've had an opportunity to put brackets around the clauses and label the clauses, let's see how you did. Looking at your Tuesday section, we've already put, you can use that information to help you. If you can hear the music is one clause. Raise your hand is another clause. The next step involves identifying what are the dependent and or independent clauses in the sentence. So you have to ask yourself, which of these clauses, or both, could be their own sentence without wholly changing their meaning. For example, raise your hand can be a complete sentence. If you can hear the music, could not, because by using the subordinating conjunction if, which we know is subordinating because of our knowledge of awubis, after, although, as, when, while, until, because, before, if, since. Because we know this is its subordinating conjunction, it's showing that there's a cause-effect relationship. If then, or if this occurs, then this action will happen. You may have done this in science class where you had to create an if-then statement, also more formally known as a hypothesis. So this could not be its own sentence because it's dependent upon the idea of raising your hand. So this is your dependent clause, and this one is your independent clause. Okay, now I would like you to figure out the type of the sentence. Is it compound? Is it complex? Is it a simple sentence? By definition, a sentence that has a dependent clause and an independent clause is a complex sentence. The purpose of the sentence is either declarative, imperative, interrogative, or exclamatory. What do you think it is? According to Google, the word imperium comes from Latin. Imperium then evolved into the word imperial. Imperium and imperial all relate to the idea of commanding. In this particular case, our sentence is imperious because you are giving a command. I best like to remember that through the Harry Potter curse. An imperious curse, one of the 3 forbidden curses, forces the person to do what the wizard commands them to do through the curse. Please rewrite the sentence with correct punctuation. Okay. This sentence was straightforward. There's a period at the end, and you capitalize the beginning of the sentence. However, if you were to flip the clauses around, so to say, if you can hear the music, raise your hand, suddenly you need to add a comma. The reason for this is because if you can hear the music is the weaker clause, and so you're putting the weaker clause first. Furthermore, the conjunction if is like a glue or a connective that shows there's some sort of relationship between the 2 clauses. By sticking it in the middle, you're illustrating what is the cause or the specific reason as to why you would raise your hand. But if you move that conjunction to the front, suddenly you just have a continuous strand of words without any glue of a word in between. If you can hear the music, raise your hand. So you put that comma as a placeholder for if. Now, if you haven't done so, you haven't downloaded the document, go ahead and do so, and then, or you can draw this and try to diagram the sentence. I'll put in some hints as you are working, and then you can see how you did. All right. Weird Al gets catchy after a while, but you know you can always turn the volume down. Before I go over the answers, and you can just copy and paste, which really doesn't have much value for you, I'm going to give you the formulaic layout of our diagram so that you forget to remember or continue to memorize how we plug and chug our ideas. Okay. And then remember that anything, I wonder if I could get some sort of bracket here to show you. Yep, that's it. Anything that goes underneath the lines, so in this case the diagonals, those are called modifiers. They're things that help to describe or characterize. Now keep in mind that's different from a helping verb, because a helping verb is directly helping here. It's very important to the sentence. Modifiers are those things that we add to make things clearer, but aren't necessary for you to get the caveman speak across, right? For example, if you said, if you can hear the music, you would say, if you can hear music. Those are all the essential things. The is a modifier that makes us sound less primitive and more sophisticated, but it's not essential in order for the sentence to be comprehended. But if you hear music versus if you can hear changes the verb tense, so that's a little bit more important. Oh gosh, sorry, I had a brain fart. Okay, now we put our verb. Even though our verb comes first in the sentence, we always put it in the middle. Whoopsies. The goes under music. It's supposed to go on the diagonal, but I can't get it to fit there. And then your goes on this diagonal line, if I can ever get the cursor there. There we go. All right, congratulations. You have finished our daily grammar practice. Thank you for watching and doing it with me. Let me know if you have any questions.